Time for oral questions. I recognize the Leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition.
Good morning, Speaker. This question's for the Premier. After 6 years of this government, the state of our health care has only gotten worse in the province of Ontario. Just ask the people of Huron-Perth, folks in towns like Stratford and Seaforth and Clinton, who have faced ongoing emergency room closures and reduced hours. Imagine showing up after an accident only to see a closed sign at your local emergency room. That is the norm in rural Ontario. And now we've learned that the hospital group in Huron-Perth are going to have to make even deeper cuts. They face a $3.3 million deficit. So, Speaker, how many people facing medical emergencies in small and rural communities have to go without care before this government changes course?
To reply, the Deputy Premier and Minister of Health.
Thank you, Speaker. You know, I'm very proud of our government's record supporting our hospital partners, making sure that they have the necessary funds to ensure ongoing operations. In fact, through commitments from the Ministry of Finance and our government, we've seen 4% year-over-year budget increases for the hospital budgets. We've always known that our hospitals are our core and our base to ensure that we have great continuing care in our communities, and we'll continue to make those investments because we know whether it is hiring and training new physicians, whether it is expanding access to critical MRI and CT scanners, whether it is in fact 50 new capital expansions, our government has always been there to support hospitals and community care in Ontario. Thank you, Speaker.
And the supplementary question.
Speaker, this is not a record to be proud of. This is not a record to be proud of. And it is not just rural hospitals, right? Hospitals in cities are facing the same pressures because of this government's underfunding. Hamilton hospitals are now predicting a more than $136 million deficit this fiscal year, right? They're going to be looking at staffing cuts at a time when emergency rooms are already overcrowded and hallway health care in Ontario is worse than ever before. Making sure that people can get the care they need when they need it is a basic function of any provincial government, and it is the right of every single Canadian. So will the Premier explain to the people of Hamilton why he cannot deliver that for them?
Members will please take their seats. Minister of Health may reply.
Thank you, Speaker. It must be NDP math today. 4% increase year over year for hospital operating budgets. $85 million increase in hospital capital and expansions. We're making the investments to not only make sure that we have primary care physicians who are training in the province of Ontario, when respectfully, the last time the NDP government were in power, they were actually cutting residency and hospital positions. So I will take no lessons from the member opposite on how to better protect and serve and prepare for an aging population and a growing population in Ontario. Whether it is new seats for nurses, for nurse practitioners, for PSWs, for physicians, we are getting the job done because we know we need to ensure our hospitals, our community care, our long-term care facilities have those critical health human resources available to them as we continue to expand the system.
The final supplementary.
I'll tell you what, Speaker, I'll give her some Tory math, shall I? Some conservative math. 1,000 emergency room closures last year. 1,000. The minister's words do not match the reality of the people of Ontario. Healthcare in Ontario is worse than it has ever been under this government. In small towns, in big cities, getting the care that you need, even in an emergency, is no longer a given. That is life after 6 years of this Conservative government. Every single contract for a private surgery that this government gives out means less funding for our local hospitals. So why is this government underfunding our hospitals in favor of private surgical clinics that are going to always put profit ahead of patients.
Members will please take their seats. Minister of Health.
So let's get some numbers on the record, shall we? In July and August, there was a 99% open rate of our emergency departments. We have seen an 85% overall improvement. And why have we seen that? Because our government has made investments with healthcare professionals, with hospitals. We have Ontario Health working directly. If there is a hospital that is needing additional coverage to cover their emergency department. But, Speaker, you know, the member opposite talks about Hamilton. I don't just rip and read from the headline. I actually make calls. So I had a conversation with the Hamilton Health Sciences CEO this morning. In fact, there is no layoffs happening at Jurvinski. It is quite the opposite. They want to expand the number of clinical trials by 20, and therefore they are doing recruitment right now today for Health Human Resources. That's how we get things done.
Thank you. The next question, once again, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Speaker. And this question is back to the Premier again.
Order.
Let's talk numbers. Let's talk numbers. The Financial Accountability Office report came out last week, and it confirmed what we have been saying on this side of the House. Housing is not a priority for this government. It has never been more clear. Housing starts down. Expert advice ignored. 6 years wasted. The last time housing starts were this bad? 70 years ago, Speaker. 70 years ago. That's this government's record. When we put forward a plan to build real homes, this government shut it down. They don't have solutions, and they don't want solutions. So back to the Premier, if you won't roll up your sleeves, put shovels in the ground and build some homes, will you at least move out of the way to let those of us with a real plan get the job done?
Members will please take their seats. Order. Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Well, look, Mr. Speaker, as I said on a number of occasions, we're going to continue to make sure that we remove obstacles so that we get more homes built across the province of Ontario. I'm very happy by the fact that we are seeing more purpose-built rentals across the province of Ontario than we have ever seen before, Mr. Speaker. But to be very clear, the Leader of the Opposition's plan calls for the spending of $150 billion to build a small amount of homes across the province of Ontario. Now, the only party that has a worse plan would be, of course, the federal Liberal plan, which they spend $1.2 billion to build 2,000 homes in the province of Ontario. Because we know this, Mr. Speaker, when socialists take over the building of housing, we got a real big problem, Mr. Speaker. So instead, what we're going to do, we're going to double down.
Order.
We're going to remove the obstacles, and we are going to build
Response.
1.5 million homes for the next generations of Ontarians, despite the obstacles that they put in the way constantly.
The supplementary question.
There you go, Speaker. This is a government that is just ideologically opposed to building affordable housing. Right there, you heard it. I'll tell you something else that the report, the FAO report, showed us. It's that we are falling farther and farther and farther behind the target that everybody agrees on, 1.5 million homes we need. But we are falling farther and farther behind at a rate of 3,700 fewer units every single month. That is shameful. To catch up, I mean, my goodness, we'd have to increase housing starts by 74%. This government has no plan. They have no plan to make that happen. Look at what BC is doing, right? Look at what BC is doing. They are building at twice the rate of Ontario. So I ask this government again, why is this government doubling down on their failures instead of following a plan with a record of success?
Members will take their seats. Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition is absolutely correct. I am ideologically opposed to the government building homes when I know that the private sector can do it better. That is the only plan that the Leader of the Opposition has, right? That's the only plan that they have. They want to double down
Opposition
and
come to
recreate
order.
the failures of the Bob Rae government. We know what happened then. 1 million people were on social assistance when the Bob Rae government, NDP government, had the opportunity to govern the province. 1 million people. Contrast that to where we are today, Mr. Speaker. 800,000 people have the dignity of a job that didn't before we came to office, Mr. Speaker. We have seen massive population growth across the province of Ontario. You know why? Because people want to come to this province to experience the economic revival that has happened since we've been in office, Mr. Speaker. Now, before the higher interest rates, we were building homes at a higher pace than ever, Mr. Speaker. We have brought in housing action plans to ensure that we can continue that, Mr. Speaker. But let me be very clear. Every time the Socialist opposition brings forward a plan that would see the government take over the construction of homes, I'll vote against it.
House will come to order. The final supplementary.
Speaker, the only thing that this Premier and this government have achieved in 6 long years is encampments in every single community in this province. People are unable to find homes here because this government has failed. They refused to bring back real rent control. They slashed protections for renters in every corner of this province. Housing is now the most expensive item in their household budget of so many people in this province, and yet this government refuses to address it. They continue on this plan to create no housing. No housing is being built in this province right now, and this government is so ideologically opposed to actually getting anything done that this is the best we can expect. Well, Speaker, I got to tell you, the people of this province deserve a lot better than this. I want to ask the Premier, will he finally do the right thing? Will he bring back real rent control, stop the greed that is driving up the cost of housing all across this province?
Members, please take their seats. Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
I tell you what, Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition has absolutely no idea what she is talking about, Mr. Speaker. In fact, today the Mayor of Pickering is in. The Mayor of Pickering is here. The City of Pickering, of course, is blowing through their housing targets. You know why? Because he's removing obstacles so that shovels can get in the ground, Mr. Speaker. I was in Barrie on Friday, and you know what was happening in Barrie? They were building another 1,200 units of affordable purpose-built rentals. You know why? Because the Mayor of Barrie removed obstacles so that shovels could get in the ground. You know what, Mr. Speaker? Where mayors have done what we have asked them to do, remove obstacles, cut red tape, make it more affordable to get shovels in the ground, those mayors are meeting their targets. But when builders and home builders are faced with socialist mayors who want to stop people from getting their homes, they run into obstacles, and that's where the people of Ontario have said to us, double down, remove obstacles, let people get the dream of home ownership, and we won't let them get it.
Can you stop the clock? Just a minute. So, the vast majority of members are listening to the member who has the floor, and we are engaged in question period. Others are flouting the rules of the House and yelling across the floor. I am going to start calling you to order individually now if you persist. And then, if necessary, we'll go to warnings. Thank you. Start the clock. The next question, the member for Waterloo.
Thank you very much, Speaker. My question is for the Premier. Last week, the Financial Accountability Officer released a scathing report on Ontario's economy and housing situation. The report found that Ontario's unemployment rate rose for the 6th consecutive quarter, reaching 6.9% in 2024 Q3. This is the highest since mid-2021. This weak pace of home building has contributed to job losses in the construction sector. Ontario deserves a strong, confident construction sector that meets the housing crisis moment. Surely we can agree in this House that people living in tents in the province of Ontario in the winter is unacceptable. When will this government take the housing crisis seriously?
Members, please take their seats. again, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In the member's own riding, of course, we increased supports for homelessness by over 28%. Of course, the member will remember this because she voted against that increase in funding. But let me also be very clear, Mr. Speaker. We have increased funding for homelessness, the homelessness prevention program, to the highest level in history. Over $1.2 billion will be spent on supporting those programs, Mr. Speaker. But let me just say this. We expect results from that investment, Mr. Speaker. And if we don't start to see the results that we are promised by the investments, we will take further action because people demand safe streets, Mr. Speaker, and the people who are suffering from addiction within these encampments need more help. So we will make sure that we give them the resources, the wraparound services that are required. If we don't start seeing those results, Mr. Speaker, we will do all that we can and all that we must to give people safer streets and give people the help that they need so they can get out of tents and into homes.
Supplementary question.
In the history of this province has spent so much money getting so little done on housing. So Ontario is actually on track for the lowest level of annual housing starts on record since 1955. Our Homes Ontario plan is part of the solution. People need homes and construction workers need jobs. The Homes Ontario plan is a plan that is committed to building and overseeing the construction of 250,000 affordable and non-market homes. Strong partnerships with the not-for-profit sector is a key part of our plan. We'll build homes for people, not for profit. Your plan is not working. You are part of the problem. You are failing the people of this province. If the private sector won't build truly attainable, affordable homes, when will you actually come to the table and get something done, and so that people don't have to live in tents in the province of Ontario?
Stop the clock. The member for Ottawa Centre will come to order. The member for Hamilton Mountain will come to order. The Government House Leader will come to order. The Associate Minister of Auto Theft and Bail Reform will come to order. Start the clock. The reply, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, the reality is this. We had said right from the beginning that if interest rates were to increase at the speed at which they did, that we would see significant challenges in the housing market across the province of Ontario. That is why, of course, the Premier stepped up to the mic, was one of the first provincial leaders to say that the policies of the federal government, which were leading to high inflation and high interest rates, the fastest increase in interest rates in the history of this country, needed to come down, Mr. Speaker. That is why the Premier did that. Now, we are doubling down and ensuring that we remove red tape and remove obstacles so that we can get more homes built, Mr. Speaker. Nobody wants to see the NDP spend $150 billion to build so few homes, Mr. Speaker. Nobody wants the government building homes because wherever that has been tried, it doesn't work. Now, I know the Leader of the Opposition herself, when she was asked how much would it cost, she couldn't even come up with the answer. We had to fill in the blanks for her, Mr. Speaker. That's the NDP, blanks.
Stop the clock. The member for Waterloo will come to order. The member for Scarborough Centre will come to order. Start the clock. The next question, the member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Transportation. People in my riding of Mississauga Erin Mills have grown increasingly frustrated with congestion, gridlocks on our highways. Speaker, for far too long, the previous Liberal government ignored these issues and left our communities with no solutions. As Ontario population continues to grow, we know that we cannot continue with the status quo. Our government must implement measures that make it easier and faster to build new roads and highways across our province. We need to take action now so that people cannot spend more time more time with their families and less under gridlock. Speaker, can the Minister please tell the House how our government is finally delivering the meaningful improvements Ontarians have been waiting for?
Parliamentary Assistant, member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and thank you for the question for the member from Mississauga Erin Mills. Speaker, it's no secret that under the previous Liberal government, critical infrastructure projects simply didn't get built. They sat by as our population grew. They left our highways stuck in gridlock. Speaker, we know that gridlock is hurting our economy and taking away time from our families. That's why our government has a plan to keep our province moving. With the Building Highways Faster Act, our government is cutting through the legacy of inaction, removing unnecessary barriers, and getting essential projects moving along. This legislation allows us to fast-track vital highway expansions like the 413, finally providing relief for communities and addressing congestion head-on. Speaker, we are committed to real action, putting shovels in the ground and getting Ontario moving faster.
Supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know that families and small business in my community are relieved to see common sense solutions that will help to keep our province moving. Speaker, the Bonnie Crombie Liberals do not want to see major infrastructure projects like Highway 413 built in Ontario. And instead, they are offering zero solutions to help to get drivers out of the gridlock. In contrast, our government understands that without new infrastructure, gridlock will only get worse. That's why it is critical that we streamline the building process so that we can have a strong transportation network now and into the future. Speaker, can the minister please explain how the Building Highways Faster Act ensures our highway infrastructure meets the demands of our growing population? Thank you.
Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
Thank you, Speaker, and once again, thank you to the fantastic member from Mississauga, Erin Mills. Speaker, our government is laser-focused on getting Ontario moving and making life easier for the hardworking families all across this province. It's actually quite disappointing to see the NDP and the Liberals try to stand in the way of critical projects like the 413 without offering any practical solutions. Their opposition means more traffic, more gridlock, and a real hit to Ontario's potential for growth, all at the expense of everyday Ontarians. Our Building Highways Faster Act is about taking action. It's about cutting through red tape that has held Ontario back for too long. We're streamlining approvals and fast-tracking infrastructure. We're putting shovels in the ground faster, creating jobs, reducing commute times, and making sure that Ontario remains a place where people and businesses can thrive. With this legislation, we're standing up for Ontario.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The next question, the member for London North Centre.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Premier. Conservatives have really shown their hand. The chair of the Ontario PC Party Fund emailed Minister's office dictating minimum fundraising targets and directing them to organize 2 to 5 fundraisers each by the end of the year. Everyone remembers the Liberal-era Cash for Access regime when in 2016 their party set fundraising quotas for ministers. Conservatives had a lot to say about that at that time. My question is going to be the exact same question that Conservatives asked the former Liberal government. I quote, does the Premier acknowledge that setting fundraising targets for cabinet ministers forces them to fundraise from stakeholders with active files within their respective ministries?
To reply, the Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the question. And I'll begin with very clear. We do not have targets. We have not been given targets. And we are not following targets, Mr. Speaker. But let me tell you this. I actually learned about the email, the alleged email, through the newspaper. That's how tight it was, because it was a mistake when it was sent out. It was recalled immediately, apparently to some individuals. Now, Mr. Speaker, this is not comparable to the Liberal scandal that put these guys in this corner to think about what they've done for some time, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, according to the website, it says we need some help. Mr. Speaker, all you have to do is Google the Liberal scandals. Wikipedia has a whole page on Patty Starr, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the headlines are Ontario's Cash for Access scandal and by Big Pharma, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, but I'll get to the NDP in my supplementary.
Order. Supplementary question.
Oh, Speaker, another day for this government and another FOI. These Conservatives are always contrite when they're caught, but they're not contrite when they're in the back rooms or communicating via back channels. Speaker, let's be clear. Conservatives were righteously outraged when the Liberal government did it, but now they're drawing from the same playbook that got the Liberals reduced to non-party status in 2018. Liberal, Tory, same old story. I want to ask the same question to the Premier that the Conservatives asked the Liberals during their Cash for Access scandal. Again, I quote, do they believe that it is appropriate for a Minister of the Crown to raise large sums of money from stakeholders bidding on projects that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, where he has the power to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Members will please take their seats. The Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And everybody knows the Premier gives his phone number out to every Ontarian, Mr. Speaker. Nobody could be more accessible. I bet he gets more phone calls and texts than the entire NDP combined. 100%. But, Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. When the NDP have recently advertised for a fundraising director, what they've asked for is somebody with experience in networks in Labour and other progressive organizations, either on staff or as a volunteer, Mr. Speaker. Now, let me be clear. I know they probably know that you can't raise money from Labour. It has to be from individuals, Mr. Speaker. But even if you could access those networks, they're going to be surprised when they find out that LIUNA, IBEW, the operating engineers of Ontario are all supporting the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario.
Stop the clock. The House will come to order so we can continue question period. Start the clock. The next question, the member for Whitby.
Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Mines. Ontario is known for its rich natural resources. From our northern forests to the mineral-rich lands, our province has always been a leader in resource development. Mining has been the backbone of many communities, providing jobs and driving economic growth. Now, as the world shifts towards green technologies, critical minerals are more important than ever. These minerals are used in everything from electric cars to advanced batteries. The global demand is skyrocketing, and Ontario is perfectly positioned to meet it. Our government needs to continue to show leadership and not only supporting the mining sector, but also helping, Speaker, Ontario compete on the world stage. Speaker, can the Minister please share how the critical minerals strategy, including programs like the Ontario Junior Exploration Program, is creating economic opportunities for our great province?
The Minister of Mines.
Here comes a good answer. Thank you for the question, Mr. Speaker, and for the question from our member from Whitney. We have rare earths 20 miles west of Otter Rapids. We have cesium west of Lake Abitibi. We have phosphates east of Hearst. We have graphite west of Hearst. We have lithium deposits throughout northwestern Ontario, and we have abundant critical minerals in the Ring of Fire. But it all starts with exploration. That's why last week it was my pleasure to announce the 5th round of the Ontario Junior Exploration Program that has contributed $35 million in investments in the early stage exploration projects. The $13 million investment last week in Timmins, Ontario, announced 84 projects that funded 62 projects that were focused entirely on critical minerals.
Response?
That's why right now in Ontario, we are the #1 jurisdiction for exploration. Hear, hear.
The supplementary question.
Well, thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Minister, for your leadership. Ontario has always been a leader in mining. From gold to nickel, our natural resources have helped fuel economies here at home and around the world. But today, the game is changing. Critical minerals are the future. They're key to green technologies, batteries, and advanced manufacturing. The demand is growing fast, and Ontario has what the world needs. But to stay competitive, we must act quickly. New mines can't wait decades to open. We need a strong plan to get these minerals out of the ground and into the hands of the industries that need them. Speaker, can the minister please explain how our government's critical mineral strategy and recent legislative changes are speeding up the opening of new mines while keeping environmental protections in place?
Minister of Mines.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the question again. And the member from Whitney is entirely correct. It is critical that we get these minerals out of the ground. We have what the world needs now in Northern Ontario. We have, as we wean ourselves off of fossil fuels and we get into the electric vehicle revolution, we need these minerals as well to ensure national security. We have the minerals, we have the mines, we have the ability to ensure our future. It is critical that we continue to develop the advances that we're doing in legislation and regulations to ensure that we get these minerals out of the ground. It's important as we wean ourselves off fossil fuels and secure our national security.
Thank you very much. The next question, the member for Thunder Bay Superior North.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Premier. Ganoogaming First Nation is in a state of emergency. The bridge that is the main access into their community can no longer be used for vehicles. It's been known since 2002 that the bridge was not safe. Ontario did its own study in 2017 that came to the same conclusion, yet no action was taken. The Premier and the Minister of Indigenous Affairs did a photo op just outside Ganoogaming last Wednesday. Why did the Premier and Minister not reach out to Chief Taylor and visit the community, knowing that it is in a state of emergency?
To reply, the Government House Leader.
Thanks, Speaker. I want to thank the honourable member for the question. On behalf of the Minister and the Premier, the safety and well-being of that community when they're in an emergency is of great concern to the government. We understand the challenges facing that community, and the government's committed to continue to work with federal, provincial, Indigenous partners to develop a long-term solution on that bridge. I know that the ministry officials continue to meet with the community and their leadership for terms of reference on the bridge, and I look forward to the follow-up question from the member.
The supplementary question.
Thank you. In my conversation with the Chief this morning, those long-term solutions do not address the immediate need. In the 60s, federal and provincial governments expropriated Indigenous lands and water rights at will and gave them to industry. Eagle Lumber's current ownership of the bridge is a problem that Ontario helped to create. As of this morning, neither the Premier nor the Minister of Indigenous Affairs has reached out to speak with Chief Taylor. It's winter up there right now, and an elder with pneumonia had to walk across this bridge to get an ambulance. Premier, will you immediately purchase the land, fix the bridge, and work with the federal government to pay for a permanent solution?
Members will take their seats. Government House Leader.
Speaker, on behalf of the Premier and the Minister, I want to make it very clear that we're committed to playing a key part in the tripartite working group with the community and the federal government. Timelines and steps have been laid out to repair or replace the Macon Ground Bridge. I know that the working group continues to meet on a monthly basis as this project moves forward, and again, the ministry has said to me quite clearly that they will continue to play an important coordinating role to ensure that all of the partner ministries are providing insight into this project, Speaker.
Thank you very much. The next question, the member for Ottawa South.
Thank you very much, Speaker. My question's for the Premier. Watched the Grey Cup game last night. It was a great game. Yeah. And, you know, we watch a lot of football in the Fraser household. And this season, there's one thing that stands out above everything else, and that's the millions and millions and millions of dollars that the Premier is spending on ads to convince us that everything is just rosy here in Ontario. The truth is, that's not the experience of families.
Order.
6 years later, it's harder for them to put food on the table, to buy clothes for their kids, to pay the rent, to pay the bills, just to find a family doctor. So, Speaker, through you, when 2.5 million Ontarians don't have a family doctor, how does the Premier justify spending millions and millions and millions of dollars on ads to tell everyone in Ontario, as he would say, that everything is just peachy keen?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, through you, to the member opposite for that question. Mr. Speaker, we're very aware and have been for some time that the cost of living is impacting many families in Ontario. That's why we moved so early in 2022 to cut the gas tax, Mr. Speaker, to take the tolls off the 412, 418, to take off the driver's license fees. We acted very early. And just a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Speaker, we tabled the fall economic statement. And what was in there? There was another gas tax cut. There were taxpayer rebates so that people who are struggling today will get the relief they deserve today. And which way did the Liberal Party vote? They voted against it. They voted against helping struggling families in this province. They voted against a gas tax cut. They voted against providing relief to the struggling families of Ontario. Mr. Speaker, this is a party that will never relent helping put more money back in the pockets of Ontario.
The supplementary question.
Speaker, maybe if the finance minister spent a fraction of the money spending on these ads on finding the 13,000 people in his riding who don't have a family doctor, we'd all be better off. So these ads, they're putting gambling ads to shame.
Order.
Speaker, here, let's do this. What if I told you there was a place where families are just struggling to keep their heads above water?
Government side, come to order.
2.5 million people didn't have a family doctor, where twice as many people were being treated in hallways in hospitals, and where 11,000 people died on a wait list last year. So maybe a little closer to home. So, Speaker, what if I told you there was a place where almost 100,000 people didn't have a family doctor, and that 15,000 of those people were children? Well, Premier, it's where you live, at Etobicoke. So, Speaker, how can the Premier justify wasting millions of dollars on his orgy of feel-good ads while so many children in his own backyard don't have a family doctor?
Yeah, I'm going to caution the member on his choice of words and also remind him to make his comments through the chair. The Deputy Premier and Minister of Health.
Too bad you just can't. With the greatest of respect, Speaker, and I hope you agree with me, there's a way to have a debate without using inappropriate words in this chamber. So imagine a place.
Stop the clock. Stop the clock. So, the House will come to order. I need to be able to hear the Minister of Health. She has the floor. A question was posed to her. I think the House wants to hear her response. Start the clock. Minister of Health.
Speaker, imagine a place in 2015 where the Liberal government of the day cut 50 medical seats. We would have an additional 450 physicians trained and practicing in the province of Ontario. Now imagine a...
Stop the clock. The member for Don Valley East will come to order. The member for Glengarry Prescott Russell will come to order. The Minister of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development will come to order. Minister of Health, start the clock.
We wouldn't have to be playing catch-up and 450 physicians would have been trained and practicing in the province of Ontario.
Response?
Fast forward, we now have licensed.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I do, but I'm sorry. Time's up. The House will come to order. I'm going to be moving to warnings now, just so you know. The next question. The member for Richmond Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Labour, Immigration Training and Skills Development. Speaker, we know that Ontario faces a growing demand for skilled workers, and we have people here underemployed. Every day, we hear stories of newcomers with strong skills and years of experience who need finding jobs in the trained professions. This is particularly true in Richmond Hill. We have a lot of newcomers. We have engineers, healthcare workers, tradespeople, highly skilled individuals ready to contribute to Ontario. But instead of working in their fields, they too often face unnecessary barriers, delays, and red tape.
Question.
This hurts our economy and our communities. It is clear that we need to do better to help these skilled immigrants get the jobs they are trained for. Speaker, what is the government doing to help skilled newcomers find work in the profession faster?
To reply, the Minister of Labour, Immigration Training and Skills Development.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the member for that question and her advocacy to help people find better training, better jobs with bigger paychecks. Speaker, with our Working for Workers 5 Act, we've taken a number of steps. In fact, we've streamlined the registration process for internationally trained workers. And what has that meant? Thousands of more nurses entering the ranks of nursing, more men and women in the skilled trades, building a stronger Ontario. We know the federal government have grossly mismanaged our immigration system and shattered and strained the consensus around immigration. And while they work to fix a system they broke, we're working hard in Ontario to set people up for success. Through our Skills Development Fund, Speaker, we've trained over 600,000 workers, 92,000 in manufacturing, 66,000 in construction, and 36,000 PSWs, and we're just getting started.
Thank you. And the supplementary question.
Thank you, Minister, for your great work and for that strong leadership. The federal government has mismanaged the immigration system, and sadly, they have heard heartbreak stories of newcomers who have arrived in Ontario with dreams of building a better life, only to be hurt by confusion and exploitation. Fraudulent agents promise quick fixes, fake jobs offers, or forced school acceptances. It has to stop. This has not only crushed the dreams of all the newcomers, but the people in vulnerable and dangerous situations. The federal government has failed to protect these individuals, leaving provinces like Ontario to pick up the pieces. Speaker, what is the government doing to crack down on this fraudulent immigration?
Minister of Labour, Immigration Training and Skills Development.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to that member. She sees this firsthand in the GTHA, Speaker. The broken immigration system has left provinces like Ontario to pick up the pieces and to fix the broken system, Speaker, and we're shouldering the unsustainable financial costs of their inability to manage the asylum system, for example. With limited data sharing and no clear federal strategy, we're seeing fraudulent immigration representatives all across Ontario, Speaker, misrepresenting application statuses on programs like the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. But while they did their, Speaker, we're going to act, and we're going to act aggressively. We're stepping up, and we're introducing new legislative measures that will impose fines, bans, and stricter standards on scammers and scumbag bad actors. Speaker, their day in this country, their day in Ontario is over, and stay tuned. I'll be introducing more this week. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question, the member for Sudbury.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Premier.
Speaker, according to the CBC Freedom of Information request, workers in Ontario are owed $60 million in stolen wages. Like Ontarians across the province, New Democrats believe in the value of hard work, and we believe that includes workers getting paid for their hard work. And if those wages are stolen, then the government should be their ally and get them their money. My question, Speaker, is why is the Conservative government allowing bad bosses to get away with stealing $60 million from Ontario's workers?
Minister of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the member for that important question. Speaker, bottom line is when workers are treated with disrespect, when workers' wages are withheld, we have to act. That member is absolutely right. It's completely unacceptable, Speaker, and we've taken a number of steps as a government, implementing highest fines, amending the Employment Standards Act, Occupational Health and Safety Act to make sure workers are protected. But we have to do more, Speaker. We know that when this gets to court, often judges, they take great liberties with respect to these fines. And that's why in my next Working for Workers bill, we'll be taking steps to crack down on that and make sure that these workers are treated with the respect that they deserve. I appreciate the member asking about that question. He's right. It's unacceptable, Speaker. And we're going to continue to act to protect workers in the province of Ontario.
The supplementary question.
Thank you. Question to the Premier. Speaker, Ontario's workers have 60 million reasons to believe the Conservatives aren't serious about getting their stolen wages back.
That's right.
The Conservative government will brag about doubling the fines for wage thefts, but during estimates, the Minister of Labour, Speaker, wasn't able to cite a single time that the previous maximum, was ever used or enforced. And the government's own stats show us that most of the time, stolen wages are never paid back. My question, Speaker, is when will the Conservative government get serious about wage theft and collect the $60 million owed to Ontario's workers?
Minister of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development.
Thanks, Speaker, and I appreciate again the question from the member opposite. Speaker, stay tuned for our next Working for Workers bill, Speaker, where, again, that discretion that the judiciary has exercised, we're going to be cracking down on that to make sure workers get what they're deserved and making sure that bad actor employers have serious consequences, Speaker. But, Speaker, I have to say, I mean, when we've worked together on a number of initiatives, we've put workers first. Under the leadership of this Premier, we've worked together for firefighters. We've worked together with previous Working for Workers bills. I'm going to crack down on that, and they have millions of reasons to see why. Through Skills Development Fund, we've acted to support 600,000 workers. They voted against that. We brought Labour on side with our Working for Workers bills after leaving them in droves, Speaker, and we're working to build a coalition that supports workers in the province of Ontario. This has never been a one and done. That's why through successive Working for Workers, we'll continue to put workers first and ensure that we build a stronger Ontario that we know we all need. Thank you, Speaker.
The next question, the member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Premier. Mr. Speaker, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of the year, Canadians gather to remember the sacrifice that veterans made. They gather to pay homage to those Canadians who made the ultimate sacrifice to keep Canada a safe and democratic country. It is a sacred day for Canadians, and it is a sacred day for veterans. So you can imagine my surprise, Mr. Speaker, when we heard the news about a school in Ottawa where they took their woke leftist narrative and took it.
Order.
They took their woke left narrative agenda, Mr. Speaker, and they imposed it upon a Canadian
Member for Scarborough
tradition.
Southwest, come to order.
My question to the government is, does the Premier think it's appropriate to use taxpayer-funded dollars to disgrace Canadian veterans?
Question.
Thank you.
Order. Minister of Education.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I was just as disturbed by this as the member is. Myself, my staff, the Premier as well, heard outpouring of reaction from parents, from taxpayers. I had the opportunity to speak with the Director of Education to find out what the next steps were going to be, and the board will be investigating the situation. Thank you.
Supplementary question.
Thank you for the response from the Minister. My supplementary question is, Mr. Speaker, if you go to the Royal Canadian Legion's website, the first thing it says is, on Remembrance Day, we honour those who give their lives to serve our country. That country is Canada. My parents immigrated from a brutal Islamo-fascist dictatorship and came to Canada because they wanted their daughters to be raised in a free and democratic society. The reason Canada is the way it is today is because our veterans paid the ultimate sacrifice. So my question to the Premier is, will this government make a commitment to ensure that the disrespect that was given to veterans on November 11 will never happen again in a taxpayer-funded institution? Thank you.
Minister of Education.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I too want to thank all the veterans and their families who made the ultimate sacrifice. I had the opportunity to attend many Remembrance Day services in my own area, as well as the Indigenous Remembrance Day ceremony. I want to assure the member that I had a conversation with all directors of education and board chairs on Friday, where we discussed one thing being the discretionary spending that has been happening, but also the politics in the classroom. And I wanted them to commit to ensuring that classrooms, to keep the politics out of the classroom and the focus to be on back to basics, to ensuring that our students are there and preparing them to be, and preparing them for the jobs of tomorrow. And that is my commitment to our children and to our
The next question, the member for Bruce Grey Owen Sound.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is for the Associate Minister of Forestry and Forest Products. Ontario's forest products is a cornerstone of our economy, supporting thousands of jobs and communities across the province. From lumber mills in the north to cutting-edge wood construction in the south, this industry touches every part of Ontario. But sadly, Speaker, the Trudeau-Crombie carbon tax is driving up costs for everyone. It's making it harder for forestry companies to compete and forcing families to pay more for essentials like home heating and building materials. This tax doesn't just hit big companies, it hurts workers, their families, and entire communities that rely on the forestry sector to thrive. Speaker, can the Associate Minister please tell this House what our government is doing to support this vital industry in the face of this harmful tax?
The Associate Minister of Forestry and Forest Products.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the member from Bruce Grey Owen Sound for that question. I'm proud to say that our government is supporting the forestry sector despite the disastrous Trudeau-Crombie carbon tax. Our government is building programs to support businesses in the forestry sector, helping to lower costs and create jobs, all while managing carbon emissions. That is why we invested close to $5 million in Element 5, Ontario's first certified mass timber plant, a state-of-the-art facility in the Great Riding of Elgin, Middlesex, London. This is an investment in the forestry sector that will create jobs, use our great renewable resource forest products, while helping to build homes. And not only that, we are providing nearly $8 million in funding for advanced wood construction projects, supporting projects like the University of Toronto's 14-story mass building, the academic wood tower just north of here on Bloor Street. It's our government that's supporting innovation, creating jobs, and reducing emissions, and we will continue to do so.
The supplementary question.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the Associate Minister for that response. It's clear that the Trudeau-Crombie carbon tax is not only hurting the forestry sector, but all hard-working Ontarians. This tax makes everything more expensive, from running a business to heating a home. Families are struggling to make ends meet, and small businesses, especially in rural and northern communities, are feeling the financial pressure. They're seeing their costs rise, their margins shrink, and their futures put at risk. While Liberal and NDP members support these harmful policies, our government needs to focus on real solutions that will help the people of Ontario. Speaker, can the Associate Minister please explain how our government is giving financial relief to Ontarians to cope with these rising costs?
The Associate Minister of Forestry and Forest Products.
Thank you, Speaker, and thanks for that great question. It's disheartening that members opposite support a tax that harms our northern and rural businesses while routinely voting against policies to support them. This government is taking a different approach. We are providing financial relief for families and businesses. Speaker, times are tough. Inflation and the cost of living is stubbornly high. And that's why our government is providing the extension of the gas tax cut, saving Ontario households an average $380 per year since the cuts were first introduced in July 2022. And this is saving the forestry sector $2.8 million a year. The Premier and the Minister of Finance are taking action to provide families, people and workers some much-needed relief. Starting in early 2025, every Ontario tax filer will receive a $200 rebate, as will every child in qualifying families. Speaker, these are the latest steps to put more hard-earned money back into the pockets of the people of Ontario. It's a shame the members opposite will put politics ahead of affordability for Ontario's families and businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question, the member for Toronto Danforth.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, my question to the Premier. Hydro consumers in Ontario deserve to be protected from higher prices. But the fall economic statement continues a Liberal plan to increase privatization and consolidation of local hydro utilities by giving tax breaks to private investors. Why is the Premier giving tax breaks to private investors when it means higher prices for consumers?
The Associate Minister of Electrification.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and I'm very pleased to answer the question from the member opposite. As the member knows, we have taken substantial steps since coming to office to finally fix the hydro mess that we saw created under the Liberals and supported by the NDP in the province of Ontario. We saw hydro rates go up by 300% when the Liberals were in power, and every single step of the way we saw the NDP support them. And that's why, in comparison with the Green Energy Act fiasco that we saw under previous governments, we have the Affordable Energy Act that is being debated in this chamber, setting as a base level support for the people of Ontario, strong support on affordability and strong measures to ensure that our local distribution companies and every part of the energy sector is working together to address affordability for the province of Ontario. And I'll speak more about why the measure included in the fall economic statement is so important to support affordability and ensure that more people in the province of Ontario are receiving affordable, reliable, clean energy, a luxury that we didn't have under the former Liberal government.
The supplementary question.
Notwithstanding what's been said, the government continues to perpetuate Liberal policies that will drive up hydro rates. We all know the strong rise in hydro rates started with the privatization of power by the Harris Conservatives. The Liberals continued the privatization and extended it to local utilities, claiming it would save money. But the Auditor General in 2022 showed that smaller utilities were on average more efficient than the bigger ones. The program this government is continuing is one that will drive up hydro rates. They're following the Liberal example. When will the Premier abandon this Liberal policy that drives up hydro rates?
The Associate Minister of Energy Intensive Industries.
Coming from the member opposite, speaking about driving up hydro rates, and we heard from the Auditor General when the Liberal government was in power, supported by the member opposite who was here at that time, a 300% increase. What did that look like? That meant that we saw in the feed and tariff system fit contracts that were 10 times market value, 80 cents a kilowatt hour, and that directly led to the massive increases in electricity rates. We had a plan when we came in to stabilize electricity rates, and it's worked. As a result of that plan, we're attracting new businesses, new entrepreneurs into the province of Ontario, and we're seeing that economic growth in every single corner. But it's not just about businesses, it's about the people of the province of Ontario who no longer have to choose between heating and eating. And every single aspect of our integrated energy plan is focused on affordability for the people of this province as we lean into our clean energy advantage, create a superpower here in the province of Ontario, and ensure that we're able to export that energy across this continent as well, supporting families, supporting job creators, and supporting the people of the province to grow and thrive.
Next question, the member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Francophone Affairs. Speaker, in my riding, there's a vibrant Francophone community that has called Sarnia home for over 400 years. I know how important it is for residents of Sarnia to receive the support they need in their first language. For far too long in this province, the Franco-Ontarians were left behind, unable to receive services in French, which is frankly unacceptable. That's why our government must ensure that our Francophone population is being respected and their needs are being met. Speaker, can the minister please explain what actions our government is taking to ensure that the Franco-Ontarians across this great province, including in my riding of Sarnia, have greater access to French service? Thank you.
President of the Treasury.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et merci.
Thank you for the member of Sarnia-Lambton's question. Since November, the designation of Sarnia is officially in effect. This designation ensures that our government has to offer French services in Sarnia. Since our modernization of the French Language Services Act, this would not have been possible without the leadership of the member for the Sarnia-Lambton.
Possible without the leadership of the member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Speaker, our government was the first in over 4 decades. You understood that well. The first in 4 decades to modernize the Act on French Language Services. The previous government spoke well about making modernizations, but didn't actually do it concretely.
Well, thank you, Speaker, and merci, Madam Minister. This is incredible news for the residents of Sarnia as they join 26 areas that have been designated under the French Language Services Act. I want to thank the Minister for her support and leadership in making this designation happen for the people of my community. It's encouraging to see that our government is delivering on our commitment to provide French language services across this province. According to the 2021 census, 80% of Franco-Ontarians live in one of these designated areas. While significant progress has been made, more work is still needed to increase access to French language services in support of the Ontario's Francophonie. Speaker, can the Minister please inform the House on how the designation of Sarnia fits into this government's long-term commitment to supporting Ontarians' Francophonie?
Francophone Affairs.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you to the member for his question. The designation of the city of Sarnia is another example of our commitment to improve French language services in the province by meeting the needs of Francophone communities that are continuing to grow. This is thanks to the participation and cooperation with Francophone associations. We know that to invest in Francophone communities is to invest in our prosperity generally. This is part of our long-term strategy to improve the Francophone community. This strategy includes investments, essential investments in education and in improving access to justice. Investments in Francophone communities are well above any other investments by any of our predecessors, and we continue to support the community in any way we can.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Premier. The Financial Accountability Office has reported that Ontario's exports are struggling and that we've now seen the third drop in the past 4 quarters. This reflects an ongoing challenge in the auto sector. We need to promote and support the auto industry. The automotive industry matters to Ontario. In Oshawa, we know a lot about the importance of a strong automotive sector. Auto manufacturers have been working to ensure that their products are not only made in Ontario, but that Ontarians choose to buy and drive them as well. One challenge that has been identified is the lack of charging infrastructure in the province and the lack of government leadership to ensure folks can charge their EVs or future EVs at home. My EV Ready Homes Act is sitting in front of this government with support from industry to help build consumer confidence, and they are ignoring a real solution and a good idea. When will this government get it in gear and do what is needed to make sure Ontarians are buying vehicles of the future that are made here in Ontario?
Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade.
Well, thank you very much, Speaker, for the opportunity to continue to talk about our wonderful auto sector. Look, we've landed $45 billion, Speaker. If you remember, only a few short years ago, both Australia and Ontario were headed off a cliff in auto. Australia decided to throw the towel in and get out of the auto business. Premier Ford said, not happening in Ontario. We're going to save the 100,000 auto workers who were working in Ontario, whose jobs were in jeopardy. Speaker, we went from $0 to $45 billion. That's more than any U.S. state has landed. In fact, in all of the United States, they've only landed $119 billion compared to our $45 billion, Speaker.
Thank you very much. That concludes our question period for this morning. The member for Burlington.